future AI compliance professionals, what's that one or two non-negotiable skills that they should have or start working on?
I think understanding of the software development lifecycle, understanding different AI modeling works, understanding the differences between all these models to a basic level. You don't have to be a developer to go and develop it, but you need to understand the basic concept of it. Right? Ethical foresight, biasness, fairness, right? What's the difference of all these? And having a general understanding of how these cross-functionality fluency would work.
Hello everybody and welcome to yet another episode of the Everything AI and Law podcast with Tolulope Awoyomi. On this episode I have Abhinavdutt Singh. Abhinav is a leading voice at the intersection of AI, healthcare and compliance. He has nearly a decade of experience in safety critical systems where he ensures that AI ML-powered medical devices are not only innovative, but are safe, secure, and regulatory ready. But beyond that, he is helping define what safe and ethical AI should look like on a global scale, regulatory-wise, through ForHumanity, IEEE, and OWASP. You know what? Without further ado, please get your AI popcorn, your ethical flex, and your legal drinks and come chill with us. Let's go. So let's start with something concrete. The NHS kidney treatment backlog in the US. Can AI actually help to indicate which patients to prioritize first in a safe and efficient way?
Yes, but I think the concept is you would need some kind of a human oversight on that, right? Think of it in this way. If you are a patient, you fill your forms, are in the queue, suppose line 20. Do you want a AI to prioritize you over someone else, right? So as you know, we have tremendous in from providers or nurses and doctors, right? And that's why we have such a long queues or even scheduling appointments with general physician or doctors, right? It will certainly help, but you would need it won't be the full autonomous system to do that. You would need some kind of a human oversight, and EU AI Act kind of highlights that you need to have human oversight on the system which has been deployed for your services, basically.
So AI cannot help with that? Because if
it can, that's what I'm saying. It can, but the decision making should still be with the human till I guess at least in near future, yes. Yeah.
So if, for example, an AI recommends something and the human who's overseeing it approves the recommendation and then something goes wrong or someone is hurt, who's liable? Is it the hospital or the doctor that recommended it, that approved the recommendation, or the development team or the AI vendor?
So that's a good question, right? I think that depends on what kind of harm has. So my work is on devices, but in general, what happens is there is a risk map to each and every system you give, either for the patient care or for the patient infrastructure system care, right? And what you map the systems to is respected to harm and hazard, right? What hazardous situation can occur and what harm can happen to the right. So to in some extent, your AI system which are being deployed should have that. right? So one of the scenario would be covered that a patient got a harm. Number one, right? Number two, there needs to be acknowledgement or transparency to the patient that, hey, if you're choosing, for example, humanoid robotic surgery, here are the parentheses, that doctors and surgeons would be around. Here is the risk you are going to sign up. Some might accept, some might not, right? Some would still go for the traditional way of surgery, right? So from a liability perspective, I think it has to be acknowledged by patient and the family, depending on what situation you are in. Two, I think hospital needs to be accountable as well, right? And to some extent, provider or deployers. But in that sense, there needs to be further investigation if something, really, really bad happens, for example, death. So I think we have a kind of system around it in the existing world. AI is just a little bit more unknown variable at this point, where people are still figuring out how these regulations and laws are gonna be impacted to the system. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question to that. So you mentioned that, you work in the aspect of devices. So what's
Yes.
the typical compliance trap that you see AI medtech startups falling into?
I think need to provide the solution to a problem faster than others versus the compliance itself, right? And it's nothing new from just AI perspective. In devices world, it has always been that you end up implementing a lot of things in the startup world, but then you go and catch up on your traceability, controls, documents, and XYZ. What happens is, in some extent, some startups are really good. They start everything from the beginning, regulatory and compliance aspect. In some or majority of the startups, they bring quality regulatory folks later. What And that's where the compliance trap happens, because you have created a compliance gap and you are expecting people to come and catch up on all the development which has happened for the product, and they are working. I think in AI, the biggest challenge would be maintaining the documents and traceability to the system, because documents and traceability is, in some extent is static, and your system is devolving. Your requirements might be evolving in some. So for that, at this day and time, there's no proper rule or governance tactic method which exists, and that's what I'm trying to work on.
Okay, I'd like to know more updates on that as that goes on.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so now I'm interested in the intersection between AI and compliance, which is where you
Yes.
work. What's the biggest pain point when trying to validate an AI model for a regulated medical device?
Currently, FDA has approved quite number of AI systems, right? I think FDA released their guidances on AI-enabled devices, how the life cycle should look like, and the PCCP module, which is basically when you have to submit a 510K and when not, because the systems are going to be ever evolving, right? They just launched it like now, and it's still in commenting phase. So catching up on where those systems are, and now the new regulation and guidance are coming, right? Would be challenging. The other thing is, as these systems are evolving, the catching up on the validation part, right? What kind of validation do you have done? Do you have a bias testing enough to consider the predictive modeling, which is changing from step A to step B? Have you covered that theory, right? So, and the traceability to the requirements, because in our world, we freeze the design before we get into testing. right? But we implement various different software methodology where we can test, we identify the requirement. If there is any gap, we go back, we change the requirement, we do that freezing phase again, and then we retest the system till we are aware that the system is working and good and safe, and that's when we go and deploy. But in AI, it's going to be a little bit challenging because it's a dynamic model, right? It would require a rigorous traceability, a very appropriate version control, and robust documentation. And that's where the challenge is going to be, I guess. Yeah.
So, regulations like the ISO 14971 and the IEC 62304 have been the cornerstone of medtech compliance.
Yes.
But are they failing or are they falling behind AI learning? Or what do you think about it?
Yes, so basically, 62304, and I'll first take 62304 and then 4971, right?
Okay.
62304 is a software development lifecycle, which any medical device software is getting into. They have to follow that. So that is a base, but there are various different other standards which also comes into the play based on where and what your software is going to be used. In our world, we call it intended use of the software. 14971 is a risk standard which is used for categorizing risk and methodology for the risk for the system, be it a hardware or a software. Now, from AI perspective, the system do not call anything about AI. Being said that, I think 62304 new revision is coming, which the standard committee has worked on, and it's going to implement AI. The major change is about AI system and life cycles. And 14971 is still in review from the standard committees, but they have new standards. For example, 34971, which FDA guidance not released, a draft guidance which they shared also calls out that you have to follow 14971 and 34971. Being said that, to answer to your question, I think it's still playing catch up with the technology. There are other standards and regulations which are also can be used as a guidance, which is I think are good, but they're not specifically for med device, which is 4201 for the AI systems, and EUA Act has actually set a standard where now everyone is trying to kind of go in.
That was my next question on the EU AI Act. So we see a
Yeah.
divergence or a difference between how EU is treating AI regulation versus how the US is. US is more resistant. So do you think in the future would see more regulation harmony or chaos?
So hopefully towards harmony.
Okay.
All these organizations at the end of the day, they do at some point in time they come together and they try to bring some harmonization. But I think that's the challenge where the innovation have because if you are developing a product and your patient population is across the world, which is for any devices, right, or any product, from software perspective also, you have to go through each country regulations and compliance part, and each country has its own different details about how your development needs to be, how your device needs to be, but at the end of the day, the risk profile stays the same, right? Of the product, the risk document stays the same. The basic requirements design document doesn't change. What changes is the few documentation which a country would need more. But at this point in time, I think there's still a little bit chaos. I would say it would eventually get into harmonization, and that's where the standard committees from ISO to other groups which have been involved in, They've been working on various different principles of AI, basically transparency, accountability, risk classification and management, how the enforcement would work, and how the it's gonna map with EU. But the current base, most of the organizations are taking EU AI as their base, and they are building things out of it.
So real quick everyone, I just want to tell you about something exciting. My new book titled AI, Machine Learning, Deep Learning from Novice to Pro is available for pre-order. It will be out 9th of August 2025. And if you're my fellow crisp paper feelers, it will be out on the 9th of August and you can order your hardcover on that same day. If you're new to AI or you already have some foundational knowledge in AI, this book is for you. From novice to pro, it doesn't matter your level, this book is for you. Okay then, let me allow you go right back into the podcast. Thank you. Right, so I'm curious to know, has AI already started to be implemented in the medical field, and how? Because I'm thinking about the risk profile, because if it makes a mistake, that's probably somebody's life being taken away or health being deteriorated. So how is that?
So let's talk about first machine learning, right?
Okay.
So machine learning has always been part of, like, not always, but at least has been part of medical devices, whether it is SIMD, which is software in medical devices, or SIMD, which is software as medical devices, which are mostly a software standalone product, uh, right? So artificial intelligence has started to be part of the products, but it's not making the sole decision. Like I said, there are human oversights. Basically, when we talk about that AI is going to make a decision and someone's life is dependent, is when we say that there's no doctor surgeon involvement, and my product is giving an output which would then govern or define patient's care or therapy, or future surgical approach, right? And at this day and time, I think there are AI systems, like I mentioned, right? FDA has approved multiple AI systems, but there is a phase where the system brings an output, and doctors, surgeons reviews the data. Before that, there are clinicians who looks at the data and then goes into. So there are gatekeepers in place after the system provides you an output. But this I'm talking when in the sense of monitoring, for a monitoring product, right? There are systems which are either implanted in a patient, or in some sense and form are kind of on the patient itself. Those devices also have some aspect of human oversight on that, uh, and that has always been in our world. So I think for now there are things in place, and do they need to get more rigor or re-reviewed and see what else we can do? Yes, but yeah.
So I want to be imaginative a bit, or I want to go into the future, like a flash into the future.
Yeah.
Would there be a time where there'll be 100% robotic doctors, and like people would trust it? Like, would AI ever get to that point where it is good and trustworthy and safe?
I like to be optimistic, and I'm engineer by heart, so yes, but the trustworthiness and transparency would play important role in that. The reason is, I think maybe not now, but in near future, definitely I could foresee that you would have humanoid robots and doing surgeries. We are already building, chatbots and Gen AI applications for providing a solution, which where between now and you visiting a physician. right? A lot of people are still figuring that out, and there are a lot of products in the market, or not in the market, but in development on that. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's very fairly possible. But I think we have to build an infrastructure to be for those systems to be compliant enough and trustworthy enough for humans to rely on it, right? One example I could think of is autonomous car, right? We never thought about having autonomous car, but nowadays you see it has gotten better, right? I mean, a lot of people use autonomous car, at least in the West, when they're driving long drive, and slowly they're becoming more reliant. So it's a step by step process, I guess.
I guess it's a case of never say never, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna take some time.
Like how many years? Can you make a prediction?
It's difficult. So see, have you seen? Do you know any humanoid companies? Have you?
Yeah, but up the top of my head, I can't remember the names. But yeah, in the US, yeah.
So Boston Dynamic is one of
Right,
the
yeah,
humanoid
Boston.
robot, right? Figure Eight is a new company.
Yeah.
They are building good robots. Unitree from China is doing tremendous job. Looking at their progress, I think it's not too far, because I have worked in a robotic surgical platform, but where physician manages that robot, right? And the way those systems work is I can sit here and I can do a surgery in DC or in Europe or in India or China or Japan. With the
Really?
technology, yeah, yeah, that still
So the
exists.
robot does the surgery and you are in
No,
another
no, no.
country.
Physician.
Okay.
Physician is managing that robot. So I have a system here, and the other system is in different country or different place, in a
Mm.
hospital, and I can connect my system with that system to do the robotic surgery.
Wait, give me an example of the surgery. Like surgery operation on human body?
Yeah. Yes.
Really? So, wait.
Yeah.
Wow, I need to just be clear in that way. So, for example, I'm a doctor and I'm in DC, and then my
Mhm.
patient is in maybe New York or another country like maybe India or Nigeria. So I can connect to my system and control the robots to conduct the surgery on my patients
That's
in
correct.
India or Nigeria. Really?
Hmm.
This
Hmm.
means what's the difference between that? Okay, there is a difference, but we are getting so close to 100%
Yes.
autonomous robots. If that is a
Ye-
reality,
Yes, yes, and that's where we are already in
wow.
semi-autonomous systems, right? And the way when I say semi-autonomous system is, one is obviously when it's in the surgical room, you have everyone who are involved in surgery in that room, and the physician is controlling the robot, right? Think about it. Is the same system somebody bringing in a application which would then keep learning from how physician is doing a particular surgery, and after number of runs that data has been collected, and now the system can do it automatically, right? So it's closer than what people can imagine. I could say that. I cannot give you a year, or I go back in 2011, 2010. I used to teach robotics to engineering graduates. I was myself an engineering student back in India, and me and my buddy, we used to do engineering. We used to do a robotics, basic level of robotics workshops in different colleges. How to you basically, run a motor, how to make sure that what degree of freedom looks like in XYZ. And at that point, Boston Dynamic was, doing their key product, what was a military dog at that point, right? From 2010 to 2025, they have a variety of products, and their products have improved way better. Those products are being used now in military, specifically when there is you know, this devastating situation like a hurricane or XYZ, right? So from that standpoint, I'll give you 15 years. Let's say 2040. It might be sooner than that, but I'm being conservative here.
Have you read the book AI 2040? Okay, so
No, I haven't.
oh, okay, because honestly, he gave that kind of prediction, so that's why I
Yeah,
asked why it. All right, wow. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I think the future is going to be quite interesting.
yeah.
But do you think that would be that would constitute a job loss for doctors or not?
No, I don't think so. See, a human needs a human,
Hmm. Right.
right? I think it's gonna help the job. It's gonna help them to make their job easier. Think about in this sense. When there was no laptop, people used to work. After the laptop came, people still work. And there was no smartphone, people used to have, even before the phone came, people used to write letters and send it. They had some sense of communication. Then the phone came, then the mobile phone came, and then the smartphone came, right? You still have those communication. You just evolve. That's the that is the beauty of being a human being. We keep evolving ourselves. We adapt to the situation and the environment, and that's why uh, we have come from where we were, right? Uh, so it will help people in their job, and it will help fill the gap of the resources which we lack at this point, right? Considering we have 8 billions population in the world compared to the whole population, practitioners, doctors, nurses are very less, right? So there needs to be some technology to enable that, right? Canada has a bigger problem. They don't get appointments for months, right? Uh, we have problem. We have to wait sometime 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or a month, right? Country like India, they have you get appointments, but it's if you go in any kind of a normal physician's place, it would be crowded. So what happens in that sense? In the doctors, practitioners are getting fatigued, right? That it will help reduce that. So I strongly believe that it will help in some sense. It won't take job.
I agree. I agree. I see your logic, and I agree to that. True. Okay, so let's go into international regulation and ethical guardrails. So you're plugged into the IEEE for humanity.
IEEE.
Yeah, because I was wondering how do I pronounce this? IEEE for humanity, and is it OWASP or OWASP?
Yes.
OWASP.
OWASP. Yes,
Oh,
it's OWASP.
OWASP. Okay. Thank you. What
Yes.
global standards or ideas are really causing a stir in AI regulation today?
Absolutely. So, the transparency, bias, responsibility would be the other core concerns, right? In IEEE, I'm working on white paper for workforce resilience AI framework, and in other group of IEEE, I'm working on standard for equitable healthcare data for from climate standpoint. In ForHumanity, I'm working on audit scheming with the form, right, and governance of those systems. OWASP, I'm working on maturity modeling for secure AI development and cyber threat intelligence guidelines. And then there is one more organization called ASQ, American Society for Quality. We have just started working on. some AI aspect of it. So if you see, I am kind of plugged into various different organizations in various different space of AI. One is for completely modeling and developing, one is for the framework, another is for auditing. One thing I can ensure is there needs to be inclusion, auditability and governance from dataset to deployment to post monitoring of these devices. And audit would be something which would become a very continuous effort for these systems. For example, and it won't be just from if something goes bad or there's some kind of compliance uh, audit which happens monthly or yearly standpoint for companies. It's gonna be it's going to be a norm as financial audits are in today's day and age.
So we begin to hear AI audits. AI audits. Is that what it's going to be
That's
called?
correct.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of actually we in ForHumanity we did a providers audit scheming, and ForHumanity is now connecting with various different spaces to deploy their audit scheming for the providers, right? And it's really good scheme for the companies who wants to be compliant and build their product for the better human you know human life. Yeah.
I think that's pretty important because we don't want issues like bias in
Hmm.
AI, especially when it has to do with human life. So I can
Yeah.
imagine the standards being really high. Is it?
Yes, and so one note, all these groups which I'm working on,
Mhm.
they're in broader scope of systems than the medical field. So
Oh,
yeah, yeah. So we are talking about auditing a AI system for your credit housing, right? We are talking about system for your, a financial institution. We are talking about AI system for your daily, any other different app which you're going to use. Because from what is happening is you are going to rely on those AI in some sense and form, and specifically from ForHumanity perspective, if you're deploying a system for a betterment of human, it needs to be it needs to have accountability, it needs to have transparency, it needs to have a proper inclusion and governance. And how do you show that you have everything is by getting audited with the right representative. And there are various different groups which have already started doing the AI audits by getting AI audit certification from various different groups. So yeah, that's going to be an all.
so, real quick, everyone, I just want to tell you about something exciting. My new book titled AI, Machine Learning, Deep Learning From Novice to Pro is available for pre order. It will be out 9th of August 2025. And if you're my fellow crisp paper feelers, it will be out on the 9th of August and you can order your hardcover on that same day. If you're new to AI or you already have some foundational knowledge in AI, this book is for you. From novice to pro, it doesn't matter your level, this book is for you. Okay then, let me allow you go right back into the podcast. Thank you. Interested. Okay, so now this question is, you touched on it a bit, but I
Yeah.
want to ask it again. So, when AI works across multiple borders, how do we make sure or make ethical requirements not optional geographically?
It starts with the audit scheming, right? It needs to be a third party certification in some sense and form. And different countries are, putting their guidances or schemes, like EU AI has done it. EU AI Act is there. Obviously, there's no at this point there's no standard benchmark, but a lot of places across the world, they take ISO standard as benchmark, right? So 4201 is taken as the base, and then people build out of that. So I think the audit scheming would play an important role in enforcing ethical AI across borders. Yeah, I mean, it would become a norm day-to-day perspective. Yeah, you would need a lot of AI auditors. A lot means a lot, because these systems are gonna keep evolving, and you would need more periodic review than a standard yearly or a 3 yearly reviews, which people do from that perspective.
So that's a new job that's going to be on the rise, AI auditors. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People have already started doing that. A lot of people you can see. One is auditing, two is policy. You would know a little bit more, right? AI policy about. A lot of people are getting into AI policy.
That's a big one. But I didn't hear of AI auditor, but now that I've heard of it, that's actually interesting. I like that as
Yeah.
well. Okay, so for future AI compliance professionals, what's that one or two non-negotiable skills that they should have or start working on?
And that's where the gaps are, right? A lot of auditors rely on what is presented to them, and based on what then you perceive and interpret and then kind of provide. I think understanding of the software development lifecycle, understanding different AI modeling works, right? Understanding the differences between all these models, to a basic level. You don't have to be a developer to go and develop it, but you need to understand the basic concept of it, right? Ethical foresight, biasness, fairness, right? What's the difference of all these? Having a general understanding of how these cross-functionality fluency would work between development, legal, quality, regulatory, right? So once you have a multiplication of everything, you can do proper auditing, and specifically understanding of how these data or the input of these systems are those structured or unstructured? What is the difference between structured or unstructured data? So in my perspective, it might be a little bit higher from what I'm saying, but I think a basic understanding of all this and the regulations of EUA Act and 6334 would play a key role in the literacy for AI compliance or AI auditors, for them to do their job successfully.
I have two more questions.
Sure.
And the penultimate question is, so flash forward to 5 years. What's that
Yeah.
one thing regarding AI regulation that will surprise everyone?
Yeah, so I think I touched upon that. One is the ethical foresight will become very common, right? In today's day, we are still debating whether or not we need to have full transparency or not, right? If you're using any system, they are not required to give you the full transparency at how their model is being, how your data is being used, how their model is evolving XYZ, right? So that is something would become eminent, right? I mean, that has to be, specifically if it's affecting or impacting in human in some sense and form, right? For example, if you are providing a picture to enhance, you wouldn't want your pictures to be used in some short video or anime as a reference, right? So that's where the transparency would play a role. The compliance officers, AI auditors auditing would become very trivial. That would come as the people keep deploying and using systems. It won't be relied on just recalls or litigations when the audit needs to be happened, right? It would be a periodic. For example, in our world, medtech world, we have yearly audits. We have audits when we deploy systems, new systems, approve. Regulatory bodies can come and audit us. And then there are recalls and litigations where they come and do the inspection. But for AI system, it would become more frequent than you would imagine. That's my prediction. But let's see how that goes.
Yeah, let's see. Fingers crossed in 2030, right? Okay, so my final question is there anything you want to leave in the mind of the listeners or watchers that I haven't touched on or asked about?
One thing I would say, if someone has not started learning or reading about AI, they should. I think they have taken the first step listening to this podcast. The other thing is people need to get involved in working groups and implement or work. If it's not just going to be the software engineering team who is going to learn about AI, it needs to be everyone and anyone. Not from the development standpoint, but from the use case standpoint, from deployment standpoint, from where and how. The awareness of using a AI application, how, what, when is very important. And I think there needs to be a general sense awareness in people's mind, so that they know if there is any ethical issues with the system, that they should not be using that system, right? So yeah, so that those are the points I would leave it to the watchers and listeners.
Thank you so much, Abhinav. It's really been a pleasure listening to you. I have learned a lot. So many things I've learned, especially the fact that, a doctor can actually be in another country and control a robot. I've also learned about the guidelines, the compliance aspect. I have learned a lot, and I'm pretty sure that the listeners have also. Thank you so much for coming and for being here, Abhinav.
Thank you so much for having me, and looking forward for any future conversations.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
Welcome. Alright, if you enjoyed this episode like I did, please click on the like button, leave a comment, leave a review, and share it with somebody. But the most important, or one of the most important, is to subscribe. Please subscribe so that you are notified when new videos drop on this channel. Thank you and see you next episode. Bye.